My name is Sonja O'Hara, and I am a writer, director, producer, and actor. I've always been a storyteller, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Welcome to another edition of Push, where we seek to pose and explore interesting and relevant creator and process filmmaker questions. Sonja, as I always say, welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is really a joy. You know, I'm a long-term fan of you, so it meant a lot when you
Oh,
reached.
God, you made my day there, girl. I'm so honored that you are giving us, a slice of your incredibly busy creative time. Sonja, just jumping off the bat, was it a dream of yours to become a storyteller?
Oh my gosh, I've never wanted to do anything else. I grew up in a fishing village in Nova Scotia, Canada, and they say that you only have a chance to sort of dream about things if you get to see that, and that's why representation matters. So I grew up as an actor and a writer, but the idea of becoming a director didn't it actually seem plausible at all because even when I would go and act in a student film or have like a co-star or small part on any sort of local television, all of the directors looked the same way and they were stern white dudes of about 40 years old. And it didn't feel like a path that I would ever intersect with. I was in front of the camera or I was writing. And it took me until I was 25 and I was putting together my first project that I would actually be writing and producing. And then I realized, oh my God, I am a director. I think it was obvious to everyone around me my entire life that I was a director. But you know how they say that when it comes to women, the pejorative word bossy is something that we never say about men. Like men in positions of power are considered powerful. And if they're confident, that's, considered like a positive. But when women do it, it's bitchy and bossy and all of these things. And I think that I shied away from owning my natural power and being like a badass director because I just thought that that would make me inherently unlikable. So it took me a long time to sort of hold space for myself and say, like, I am this. This doesn't make me less of an actor. It doesn't make me less of a liked person. Like I can be a director and be powerful. And that's probably the only way that I'm going to succeed.
That opening sentiment about women being bossy, we don't call men that. We term that with men as strong, decisive, powerful.
Mhm.
How now are you, because you've been directing and have had, many things that are you've
Yeah.
accomplished in just a very short period of time, which is incredible, which I'd like you to, tick
Yeah.
down and highlight a few of them. But how are you finding the negotiation of that?
I mean, it's an interesting one because I have learned that the only way, I say it all the time, you get more flies with honey than with vinegar. I found that there are a lot of male colleagues of mine that say, God, Sonja, why do you have to sugarcoat things? Why do you have to constantly be finding a way to wedge a compliment in there or to make sure I'm bookending any sort of feedback I have on the script or my projects with compliments? And I have to do that because as a woman in power, in order for people to champion me and like me, they need to feel like, wow, Sonja is smart and on it, but she's also like listening to other people in the room and she's a chief collaborator. And I have to really double down at being perceived as kind in order for people to continue to give me the opportunities to be in a position of power. And I'll say that being liked is a whole lot of getting this job. It's an unfair thing, but I've had to work double hard. I have an all male team. So I have male agents,
Wow.
multiple male managers, and a male lawyer. And I love all of these dudes that are supporting me and making sure that I have space in the world. But I've just had to learn that, like, I need to make sure they all feel heard and feel that they also have power. There's so much time in my life spent negotiating people management in order to be able to do my job. And like,
Right.
it's great. Like, I've been able to direct a movie for Lionsgate. Like, I'm now talking to multiple studios about 6 movies that I'm set to direct in a whole slate. Like, I'm in a very exciting kind of space, but I'm
Yay,
also
first of all, yay, congratulations.
but I'm aware how precarious it is and how the whims of others are so they can just come and go, and trying to keep favor while I do my job is a stressful thing that I don't think guys that I'm know that are in my position are having to think about. They're literally
Yep.
just like, well, this is the movie I want to make. And I have to think how to manage everyone around me so I can continue to make movies, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And what occurs to me is in the description of all of that time consuming, stressful experiences, you have to take care of other people, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
especially, and I dare I say it, the male ego at times.
Yeah,
But
no,
it
that's
is,
totally real.
that's just like what it is.
Yes,
So,
and it's fine,
um,
and I've gotten good at it, and now it doesn't take away from my creative process at all because now I just assume that everyone's doing that. But I've had it pointed out to me that I'm constantly playing 3D chess with my career, and I am. I'm
mm,
having to not just anticipate all the creative dilemmas around me, but people's responses to what I'm going to say and how I'm going to articulate it, and then my response. And I'm forming like formal rebuttals in my head to deal with all of that just so I can continue to be on set, which is
yeah,
bonkers.
yeah, it is. It is. Now, we were talking a little bit in our, little intro about that, the negotiations that you're having to make. And if you can share a little more of that experience about what you were talking
Absolutely.
about.
So right now, I'm in the process of having a film that is my baby, a Blacklist recommended script that I wrote and will direct and also act in, go into production in June in Canada with a really notable, really exciting company. So this is a dream I've worked for years to make happen. But what I will say,
Congratulations.
thank you, thank you. But in the negotiation process with my own team members, and these are people that are thrilled to have this project and can't wait to bring it, to the stage and get it done. However, everyone is still going to think about themselves. And I have found that people naturally, if you're a multi-hyphenate, they imagine that you can't do more than a couple of those paths at the same time. So when I indicated that I wanted to play a strong supporting role in my own movie, which Caris will tell you I do in all of my projects, so this is something that I'm not like unproven at doing this, it still became a thing of, oh, well, if you're acting and directing, you can't be a producer. And the whole reason that whole team is together, the whole reason we're in budget conversations, the whole reason that this is happening is because I produced it to get to that point. And it doesn't mean I'm not grateful to have producers now on board that have bigger credits than me and offer that institutional credibility, but I shouldn't have to bend over and pretend that I'm not a producer so that other people feel like they're contributing something. And
Right.
I've been having to be very aware, and I'm getting like, pushed into getting an executive producer credit, even though I'm really producing. And
Mm,
on another project right now, I am dealing with, I don't know if you've both dealt with the Producers Guild, but getting that Producers Guild mark, that shows that you actually did the producing on your project. So now for all projects, I really love that I can just submit it to the guild and then they do private arbitration to see who actually did what.
right.
And then you can get fairly, get the credits that you deserve. But that comes from me having to do the paperwork to make that happen. So I'm just
Right.
constantly advocating for myself. And if I don't, nothing happens.
Yeah.
So
I'm hopefully someday we'll be in that position of submitting
it
something
will
to
be.
the. Thank you. But it's constantly something to be mindful of the position that we're in. And like you said, are you going to direct this as well, or can you act and direct at the same time? And I'm starting to face my own kind of internal conversations on Cenote, the Mexican terror thriller that
Yes.
I've written, created. It's another one of my babies, and no, I don't want to direct it, but I know there's going to be some push around. Well, do you have to play this character? And the answer is yes. I
That's
wrote it for
you.
with a a co-lead, smaller role than the lead, who I would hope is America Ferrera. We've talked about that, but yes, I do want it, and I will also be producing it as well. So, but it is that constant thing of what are the questions? Or here's another one. We are in a little bit different age bracket, of course, but I had someone look at it, and the feedback was, yeah, but we think that maybe making the lead, which I'm not even pitching myself as, but to say I was going to pitch America Ferrera, we think that making the lead, in the leads in their late 20s might be a better you know, idea for this film. And I thought, someone in their late 20s has not had the life experience and the journey that these characters have that I've written that would matter for why they're going through this, right? So that's the other thing is now if this was a show starring Brad Pitt and George Clooney, there'd be no question about, oh sure, we can get away with that age, you know.
I mean, I'm
Um
dealing with that right now with casting, in that, I'm in my 30s. I wanted to cast other women in their 30s, and I'm getting a pushback to go early 20s with all the roles. And it's specifically wanted to make them in their 30s because to me, it's not novel for people in their early 20s to be making mistakes, but the whole point is people living in this extended adolescence and Peter Pan syndrome into their 30s and 40s. That's the novelty and strangeness of LA that I'm trying to, use in this satire. So it takes
right,
out the inherent humor if you
right,
alter ages. But
right.
people just think about optics and star power. And unfortunately, there, are a few really young people that move the needle. And, I'm going to
Yeah,
cast a couple of those people and I'm going to push for the people that are a little older for other roles. And it's a dance. But
it
I'm
is.
getting
It
better
is.
and better about saying one for you, one for me. And that's what I've been doing a lot. I will find an element that works for that studio that isn't too egregious to me. And I'll find a way to use that in my storytelling and be like, okay, you get this win, but this is a hill I'm going to die on that I'm going to make sure happens. And usually I can balance it that way.
I love
But
that, one for you, one for me. I think that's a great, I mean, it's a great negotiation, but also just the strength behind that. Tell us about the word push for you.
God,
We've talked about different meanings of it, and some positive, of course, being momentum and other things. So tell us about what it means to you.
oh, in my friend group in Los Angeles, it's a lot of multi-hyphenates that are starting to kill it and really get incredible credits. And I'm really excited to see these women, ascend. But sort of the common denominator is we all have reps. And at this point, we are fortunate to have people at a certain level, right? And yet still nobody is going to, your own representatives are making 10%, which means that you need to do 90% of the work. And I hear a lot of pushback, even from my own peers, of being like, well, those are the agents and managers should make my career and blah, blah, blah. And for me, I am the only one who's going to want it this badly. And I'm the
Yep.
only way that my career is going to happen. So I push every day. Like I joke that I'm, pushing that boulder up a hill perpetually. And it's like, is my slogan. I say push, push, push. And I'm like constantly doing it. And I'm like a big nerd about it. But I feel like every single day, if I am not doing like 10 things to move the needle, everything will stop. And some of it's paranoia, but some of it is just the reality that it's a fast moving industry and you are judged by the box office of what you made on that last project. And no one's going to care if you don't move quickly and you are in control. So,
I mean, you're just a dynamo. You're just like an avalanche here. I admire it so much, and the energy that you put into things. It's inspiring, Sonja. It really is. Tell us a little bit about, or a lot about, the things that you're most proud of the past couple of years that you've been able to do. You're film independent fellow, or
yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
film
I love that.
independent fellow, Emmy nominated, fast tracked for your project. Let's brag a little bit, girl.
Thank you. For me, I had been knowing that all of the major film festivals seem to work from selecting filmmakers that have done the labs and fellowships. That became one of my goals to infiltrate one of those labs. So I knew that Film Independent and Sundance were sort of the big two. And Film Independent, the lab that I just did this year, Chloe Zhao of Nomadland and Sean Baker of Honora, were both fellows that have done this, program beforehand. So I knew it would offer institutional credibility for my project. So this year I went through rounds of interviews for it, got selected for this lab, and then they do a showcase where you as a filmmaker get to meet with 60 of the biggest companies in the industry. And I'm meeting with Disney and Fox Searchlight and A24 and all of the companies. And then we would get 17 minutes with each to be able to pitch them. And from that, I was able to bring on some really like exciting partners for my movie. And now, my project is
Dynamite.
in development with anonymous content. And suddenly I have a producer over there who is, wants to come on board. And when she's able to go out to actors that they represent, the whole response that you get when it's somebody on the inside that's already revered vouching for your project, then I'm suddenly able to be the creative and not the aggressor for the first time in my life and let things sort of come to me. So that's even taking a moment for me to sort of process, wait, I don't have to be aggressive right now. Like I don't even know how to just step because I'm used to being a generator.
Right.
So out of that lab, now this project's going to go for me in June. So through Ontario Creates, which is like the Canadian tax incentive people, I
Yeah.
was able to fly to Canada to go and do a full paid location scout, with like a location scout that did the movie My Old Ass that won Sundance last year and able to see all those locations. And then I was able to go back to A24 and present the locations and say, this is what we're going for. And, it's been exciting. So I have that. And then I have another project that I'm directing, but not writing. I'm directing and acting in, and that's going to star Harvey Keitel and Rita Moreno. And I'm really excited about that. And that one's called Theirs. And we're set to shoot that in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then I have another project that I am going to be directing that stars Justin Bartha from the Hangover series and Bella Heathcote from Dark Shadows. And that one's going to go in Ontario, Canada as well. And yeah, and then there's another one that I'm developing with Zero Gravity, who did Ozark, that I'm writing and will direct. And that's like a cool erotic thriller. So yeah, it's been like this crazy year of these 6 features that are all in various stages. So yeah.
That's incredible. That's incredible. I mean, kudos to you.
Thank
That's
you.
just amazing. In all of this, what would you say? I mean, this is a kind of a redundant question at this in 2025, but if you had something you thought was a superpower or unique to you that you can share with other women, what do you think that is?
The confidence to make an ask and not apologize. So I have learned that everyone around me is very afraid of rejection, like major people, like giant movers and shakers in the industry will hold their cards close to their chest because they are afraid to actually look someone in the eye and say, do you want to make this project with me? And I've learned that if I am just confident enough to ask them, they can say no, it's okay. But people don't know the people that pass on something. They only know the people that say yes to me. So lately in meetings, I'm going to powerful people and just pointing out the reasons why this could be a great collaboration. I'm not asking them to do something for me. Like I'm not asking for a big break. I'm controlling my own projects, but I'm able to say, do you want to work on this thing that's already going to go with me? And I've been getting more yeses than I've ever gotten in my life. And I think it's because these people are rarely asked directly. Like people put a project in front of them and are like, oh, I hope you'll read this or I hope you'll like this. And people
Right,
are leading with reasons for the other person to say no and walk away from it. And I've
right.
just been getting people, and my own male producer on this project is like, wow, you're really confident. That worked. I can't believe you just went in there and made that ask. And he's like, and people are saying yes. He's like, huh. And yeah, I think that people,
Fancy that.
I know.
Fancy that.
Yeah. And I think also approaching networking of being of service as opposed to when I go into the room and I'm just an actor, I feel like I'm begging for a job. And it's a really gross, uncomfortable feeling where I'm
Yeah,
automatically making other people in a position of power and I feel like I'm groveling. But
right.
when I go in there as a filmmaker, I'm able to ostensibly offer a job to this person and offer something of value. So seeing myself like the acting, writing, directing, and producing all under the umbrella of let's make something together as opposed to ever posturing and begging for anything ever again.
That's incredible. What a sense of strength and power with that. I thought of that. I want to share with you. I thought of this morning and last night as I was prepping to speak with you today and to ask you some questions. And I thought, no, what has been holding, you know, I look at myself and think the times that I have taken those risks, right? And just unabashed, not giving a shit, not giving a shit about other people, but about the
No,
response of
you,
myself, really
yeah.
putting it out there. And then I think, life and sometimes circumstances in different places, you shrink a bit and you pull back. Like I said yesterday, it was like, why have you not sent just a letter to A24? Why have you, and looked up someone who did do a project from the festival circuit, a project that I think at one point that I was on the jury for this guy, I saw it on Delta Airlines on a
That's so
Showtime has
cool.
picked it
Yeah,
up,
yeah, yeah.
and A24 has co-produced it now. And I thought, it's this, you're in the same realm with that, you know.
Yes.
And I thought, what's the difference? And it really is kind of like a coming to terms with yourself kind of thing. And
Mhm.
and so thank you for your inspiring words and your
I
example,
think
because
just knowing that you are enough, that you are an insightful creator who is of value, and just seeing it as all potential collaborators as opposed to, the need to have approval from other people. And I think because I came up as an actor, that need for approval is unfortunately an insidious thing that is within me. And I have had to really
a lot
work
of
to sort
us.
of silence that voice within me and instead be like, because they teach you as an actor coming up, don't email casting directors. It's almost like you're a Victorian child where they're like you're seen but not heard. Like
Yeah,
people don't want to hear from actors unless you are famous. And it's a really gross thing that's taught to us that we then take to heart into our filmmaking. And I've had even this week people say to me, well, Sonja, you have agents and managers and reps now. Why do you do direct outreach? It could go through your reps. And I think to myself, they're still thinking like actors that are having permission from their reps to
yes,
do anything. Producers are direct people. Producers don't go through other people to make an ask. They go to the people and companies that they want to work with and introduce themselves and literally find a way to collaborate. So,
exactly. You know, I write to casting directors, not, I mean, not
yeah,
ad nauseum, but I reach out to people. I send
yeah,
a note. I let them know what's going on. I wish them a happy holiday. I reached out to a few and said, I
they're
hope you're
humans.
okay
Totally.
with
Yes,
what's
I do
going
them
on,
too.
you know.
Yeah.
And this idea that we have to be, like you said, kind of in some subservient position because, oh, we don't know what's going on unless we get the breakdowns, or oh, we don't. I mean, when has this been drilled into us where we can't get out of this hole, you know?
Really
I
toxic thing that they teach us sort of like when you're coming up as an actor in New York and LA, and it's a way to maintain the status quo. It really truly doesn't benefit the individual. There are casting directors that are old school that maybe won't like it, and there are others that will love it because we're all individuals and no one thinks as one big governing body. But it took me a long time to realize that me reaching out to somebody, there might be some companies that are like, that person isn't for me. But plenty are like, wow, that person has chutzpah and I want to work with that person. And that's led to many jobs.
and that too is just a testament. If someone else can't see that that is potential success in how you're approaching something,
Mhm.
then you know, okay, pass, right?
And they're
But the
still going to
ones,
come around once I'm undeniable. Once my project goes, they're still going to want to work with me because money talks. So even if they are
right.
like, I draw a line in the sand and like somehow I offend somebody with an email, people are still going to want to work with you when you're undeniable. So I really don't let any of that stop me.
Love it. I love it. It's incredible.
Thank you.
Sonja, how has your focus on and subjects of stories changed over the past 3 years, few years, with changes in your own life? Now, you know, Cottagecore was something you said it's been your baby, and
Yes.
how long did you have that? You know, I had Cenote for a while, I've had Pepper for a while, and I have new projects that are kind of percolating all the time. How has some of that changed? And of course, I'd love for you to talk about the one that you're going to be filming in Canada soon.
Totally. So, one thing that became apparent to me is at first I moved to LA and I see everyone following trends, like they're trying to write a spec screenplay or a pilot based off of something they perceived to be in, whether it was like vampires or dystopian or zombies, whatever it was. And I was like, I'm not going to follow trends. So, the first part of me was
Of
writing
course you're not.
stories that I was like, by the time, even if I were to try to write something based on a trend, by the time that thing is ready to go out, that trend will be over and they'll have
Correct.
too many projects like it, right? So at first it was logic based. And then I was like, I'm going to write an obscure thing that I'm excited about because if I'm excited about it, other people will be excited about it. So then I wrote a project that I won't name that was really personal to me, but I realized that there is actually a metric where you need to fall somewhere in the middle. You need to be able to write something that's personal, that you're excited about, but also, unless it's going to be a micro budget, you have to be able to get other people excited about it and be able to prove that it is going to be something that can recoup. So then I decided to write something that I was both wildly excited about, my Cottagecore script, but also that I noticed people were liking shows like White Lotus, and they're watching movies like X and Ingrid Goes West. And then it's finding that thing within the world that is able to make money, that you're also the right person to tell that story. So now I'm like, okay, writing a dark, sexy, erotic thriller, that's my wheelhouse. That's both trendy and also I just love those kind of movies. So I can go into those meetings and talk authentically about all the movies on Criterion Collection that are from the 90s that are like this, that need to have a comeback. And it's like finding where I fit in so that my work is personal and specific, but also can find a fan base. Because otherwise, I'm asking people to put money into things that are more like patrons of the arts. I want people who invest in my projects to also make a ton of money, right? So we can keep
Right.
making movies.
Right.
So it just means like writing something that is authentic to me, that I'm excited about, that also feels like there's a place in the landscape for it. So that did
Right.
mean one art house movie that I wrote that's very Eternal Sunshine. That might happen later, but Ari Aster didn't get to make his movie Beau is Afraid until he made multiple horror movies first. So just
Hmm.
sort of picture, I don't want to make one movie, I want to make 15 movies. So how can I keep making movies?
Right. So, and that's really excellent. Following a little bit of the trend, still keeping it personal and meaningful for you, with the long trajectory in mind. That's really great.
That's what
That's
I've been focusing on. And I still think that people respond to authentic storytelling. I can say this particular script that now is doing really well for me. When I first presented it to my managers, they thought it was way too edgy, way too uncomfortable, way too weird. And I felt like they were blocking me. They didn't get it. They're wonderful people. They worked with me on it. I told them, I know I have something here and you have to trust me. And now these giant companies that before I couldn't get meetings with when I was writing safe material that they signed off on, now in these rooms, people are reading this thing and they're like, wow, you can't get weird enough. Like, we want things that are edgy and genre breaking. And like, the substance is up for an Oscar. Like, this is the time for that. But people are
right.
very scared. So I had to just double down and I was like, trust me, guys, like, this is it. And you have to believe me. But it took me also going and making them some money on other projects that were a little more commercial for them to be able to see the vision on this project, right?
Right. Right. Wow. That's great. And that, wow, what a way to leverage each thing as
Ugh,
you've had
yeah.
to in
But you
order
can
to get
see
to.
why I get exhausted because it's like, even when you have like a real win, people then want your next thing to be exactly the thing you did before. So
Mm.
it still ends up being like, okay, I know I've done this thing and I know you want me to continue doing that, but this is a little bit of a segue, but trust me, it can work out. And then if you are excited, you can get other people excited.
I don't know how anyone can't be excited listening to you talk about your projects and your knowledge of the. I mean, if I had the money, I would invest immediately. To here, go run with it, run with it. It's interesting. It's interesting. Do you think that the connections you're making now, do you think that they are going to help you continue to forge your path? So,
Yes, I do. But I feel like I've worked on, you know me, Caris. You know that I'm somebody who is a nerd, who has a spreadsheet of every exec I've met from every festival and every general, since I just started out. And because this industry is so precarious, even for the executives, like we only think about the artists, but I can tell you that most execs I meet at most companies 6 months later are not at that company. The
yeah,
turnover is crazy. So I used to think that people hated my work and were ignoring me. And then I found out literally they were long gone from that company and now at Blumhouse or now at, whatever other company. So it's sort of tracking where people go, setting Google alerts for people that really feel like their work resonates with me, and then updating them about what I'm doing, but not making asks. Like if I
right,
send somebody an email asking them to read that screenplay, that is a lot of time for them. So instead, I'm going to say, hey, just letting you know that this other cool company signed on. And then they come to me and say, hey, if you're cool with it, I'd love to read that screenplay. And then I send it. So trying to position things where I'm like, of service and complimenting them when they have a win and really being sincere about the people that I'm connecting with, as opposed to trying to just keep tabs on everyone, because then you're not going to
right.
find.
Right. I've also tracked, like you, I have, tried to, as best I can, keep track of people I've met, execs or people the sometimes the small gains you make at festivals where someone bigger shows up and now they're moved to a different company. And it's interesting. A few of them are in a different place,
Mhm.
and simply reaching out and saying, "Hey, I did actually try to pitch something to a Latin company woman I met years ago who was interested in Pepper, and then she had moved from the company by the time that they were ready to try to go with it, and the company closed, folded." We've all had those experiences, like, "Oh well,
And it's disappointing, but that's why I feel like I need honestly 25 things going at once in order for like a few of them to actually land.
right,
And like this year, I'm a speaker at South by Southwest again for the first time since 2018. Super excited about that. But it was like
yeah,
the connections that I met at past years at South by ended up becoming like one of them is now distributing my other show that's on Shudder with somebody that I met at South by. It's like going to those festivals and attending, even when I don't have work there, that can feel daunting and sort of like a financial suck. But like that's where I met my lawyer. My lawyer introduced me to my last agent. And it's all this tiny
right.
microcosm at these festivals. So I really recommend like leaning into that community, which you know well.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. And which and it was saying with this other exec now, she has her own company, passed on being interested in the Latin series that I do have, but you never know, something else might shift. It's just a
Oh,
matter
you
of
never know.
respectfully also wishing people well, keeping in touch with them, saying, "Hey, you've got your own company. That's incredible. I totally
Yeah.
wish you well with that." They were very successful at Sundance last year. And I was just happy that I was in, somewhere in the pond, knowing her and having, been able to have pitched a show to her than
Yeah.
this next one I was trying, So I do think it's important, like you said, to have, I probably have about 4 or 5. So now I gotta catch up to you and get 15 projects going at the
I mean,
same
it all
time.
helps. And I will say it's easier to have more projects when I'm attached to direct other people's projects that I'm not producing, because producing really, like, I'm producing 2 projects right
Takes
now, and those are taking up the bulk of my time. And then I'm writing other projects and acting. And it's a dance, and it's really hard to
yeah.
keep track of all of it. It's just doing a little on each project each day. Whew. So.
Whew. Now, what does your day look like? When do you get up in the morning?
Oh, I'm a nerd who wakes up at dawn. I wake up at 5:30 and I then start
Incredible.
dealing with all of my New York people, which I love. So if anyone wants to
Yeah,
text me and they're in New York, I'm like up really early. So that's when
good to know.
luckily my lawyer is in New York and my publicist is in New York. So anything that I need to get done on the East Coast, that's what I'm sort of focused on in the beginning. And like right now I'm deep in a Sundance application, so I'm trying to gather all of the appropriate materials for that. I'm also in post-production on a feature that I produced and acted in, so right now we're locking the cut. So the last 2 weeks of my life have been being in the edit every day, incorporating notes and
Right.
getting a cut of that one's being represented by UTA's independent film group, so we're trying to get a version that is strong enough to show the agents over there. And then it's putting together for my own Cottagecore project. The Canadian Grant Fellowship programs close on Friday. So it's making sure I have letters of intent that shows the financial viability of the film that I have for them. And
Right.
then I got like a last minute TV audition. So it was like forgetting everything else I was doing and just learning lines and putting up the backdrop and doing all of that
Yeah,
stuff.
putting yourself
Right.
together, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So it's really each of my days look a little different right now, but and then once a week, it's making sure I write enough pages for something, a script that I have to finish. And then I also have been helping people out, but I'm really good at designing pitch decks. So I'm designing a pitch deck for an artist that I know right now. And yeah, so it's like sort of like a balance of 10 things, you know?
Wow, it's incredible. It's a
Yeah.
lot of energy, girl. You're inspiring, like I said.
So with sort of doing everything,
Mhm.
how do you sort of find balance in your life? Because I mean, we've talked with some other creators about the constant push and then needing to not constantly push.
That's a wonderful question. I think I personally really struggle with work-life balance. I'm a bit of a careeraholic. I'm really
Mhm.
obsessed. I sort of get my dopamine from career, and it, I have a wonderful therapist, And I end up ranting a whole lot about, wanting to find that balance and what is that balance. Last year, I ran a half marathon. And when I'm running, I find that's like, I'll never be a competitive runner. I'll never be great. But it's like that slow moving meditation and getting
Mm.
out of my head and into my body. That really helps. I'm also a cancer survivor. And because of all of that, I have to be very hyper vigilant about making sure that I'm going for regular checkups. I don't want the cancer to come back. So I find that I have to keep my stress at a certain level. So I have a really positive outlook that helps. But there are times that if I'm worried about my health, how can we be there for ourselves as artists? So it's
Yeah.
sort of trying to take care of myself and eating healthy and doing all of that while, you know, also trying to separate my worth as a human from my output as an artist. That's easier said than done. And that's something that I'm personally really struggling with. As a type A person who makes all these career resolutions and then shares them with the world, I put a lot of undue pressure on myself. And, it's trying to dismantle the idea that I'm only enough if I am prolific. And obviously, we're more than this, but constant
Well,
daily.
so all of that you just said is incredible. I applaud you for the running. I am so grateful that you're healthy. I know that was a rough journey for you, and what was incredible was how you went through it. It's, I can't use the word admirable because my gosh, it was a total health, crisis for you. But you already are prolific, my dear.
Thank you.
And
I feel
so,
like I had to work through that whole cancer diagnosis because it was the only way I knew. Like, the more normalcy you can have when you're going up against like strife, I think the better for your mental health. But there are also other people that didn't want to be on set during that. And I also say hats off to you. Like, I want to make sure that the cancer community knows that I'm not saying that you have to continue to be a workaholic.
of
That's not
course,
for everyone. It was just my way of processing.
right.
And taking a big break and working on your mental health is probably even better. I just don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Well, thankfully, all is well for you. And
I'm very, very
um,
lucky.
a couple more questions here. And if there's anything else you want to talk about, please. This is an interesting one. I'm getting some interesting answers with this. When you're in the process of, creation to full production, and since you do so much on each of your shows, series, films, babies,
Mhm.
as it were, we know you're not a mom yet, but is there any assimilation you can make when you release something to giving birth?
Oh, that's interesting. That's beautiful. Um, I would say that you spend so much time when you're in the process of, revising your script, and then, you're workshopping the script with the cast, and then you're blocking it and you're shooting it, and then you're watching it obsessively when it's in the editing bay. Later, I'm so protective over that piece, but it's also like my heart is outside of my chest. And I'm almost like, the ability for that project to break my heart is more like, I'm so confident as a person and being an artist. But once that piece is in the world, that's where you can easily fall down the like rabbit hole of reading online reviews. And I remind myself that like, you can have a New York Times critic's pick and that person can love it, but the people on Letterbox can hate what you did, and that everyone's favorite movie in the whole world is somebody else's least favorite movie. It's subjective, right? It's super personal. However, I can be derailed by a person writing a mean thing on the internet or on Instagram, and I have had to like really work on letting that go. So like my work being my baby, it's like, I don't know, I feel like my kid is on the schoolyard being bullied, and I just like, it's really, really raw and really personal. And then I never want to, as soon as I'm done the process of premiering the movie, then I can't even watch it because I become so hypercritical. Then I
Yeah.
just tear it apart. I'm like confident and protective of my work until it's in the world. And then I'm like, oh God. So I guess
Oh,
that's my analogy, that I love it too much, you know?
Well, I don't know I don't know anyone. I've never read a negative review or a bad review or a slight of your work. So I don't know who these people are.
Thank you. You're
Um,
just never going to please everyone. There's film bros that exist that,
yeah.
I think that there are
Uh-huh.
some male critics that are harder on women in the horror space. And there are a lot of
Hmm.
female directors that have found that. So that's just like an interesting thing that I've noted when I've done horror conventions or anything else. Like most of those dudes still are only mentioning the same five male directors as their favorite directors. So it
Right.
exists.
Right.
It's misogyny. It's fine. It won't stop us.
Well, it won't stop us. And that means I maybe need to up the gore and up the ante in my terror thriller of Cenote. Maybe that's a good
You can
thing
be
here.
really bold, really unapologetic. I think people really
Yeah.
respond.
Yeah. Taking risks, right?
That's it. That's all I think we can do. Like, if the project that I am writing doesn't scare me a little that somebody is reading it, and I write hyper personal things, like things ripped out of my own life and world, and it can
Yeah.
feel very vulnerable. Like when I'm
Right.
sharing, like I wrote something this year that was like super vulnerable about like a past queer relationship, and then I have like all of these like straight male suit agents reading it, and it's like I would never go into a room and talk about my personal life. Like I keep that clear work boundary. However, my scripts are like going into every nasty, uncomfortable, vulnerable detail. So it's like it's very, very weird for me when I know they've read this thing that's like my deepest, darkest, shame-filled secret, and yet I'm talking about it in this like career way, like, oh, the optics of this moment or whatever. Like, it's like I have to separate myself and like talk about how it's going to do overseas and like, the right sales companies for it. Because like, I don't even know how to process that they like know my inner secrets because I try to
Right.
only be a professional when I'm talking to
Of course. My God.
them.
Any series you're working on? Mostly feature films, right?
It has been mostly features, but I actually signed on to be an executive producer for a project is being pitched to HBO right now. So we'll see
Okay.
what ends up happening with that. But it's my first time being a producer on the TV side. So that's pretty cool. And then also, a few years ago, I was attached to a project with the executive producer of the TV show Ballers and Entourage.
Yes.
And now I found out this week that that pitch is coming back and they want to go back to my reps to reopen negotiation for that. So that was a pleasant surprise. So that
I
could be my
was just think I was
watch.
just thinking of that last week, Sonja, about our conversation several months ago about how you worked and worked and worked your ass off, and
So
and
hard.
then it so hard and put so much time into it, and then
And then
not,
I
it didn't.
pitched it.
It's
That one didn't go, but I pitched it right in the first few months of COVID. And I think that people didn't quite know what to do. Like I would have online pitches. Like now that's the norm, but at that point it was like pitching HBO and Netflix and Hulu and all these companies. And I felt like people were still used to buying projects in the room. And I
Mhm.
felt like that was a bit of a disadvantage. So it's going to be cool to see reviewing that material and taking it back out. But
That's
yes, most
awesome
of my world has otherwise been very much in the movie side.
and well accomplished. So and amazing. How long is the Cottagecore script? How many pages?
Um, like 102, but I think
Oh,
ideally it should be like a 90-minute movie. I feel like that's sort of the sweet spot. So
right now, right? Yeah, just
yeah, I mean, then I'll go and see a movie like The Brutalist that is many hours long, and I fall in love with having an opus like that. But I feel like I'm a
right.
couple movies away from getting that 3 hour sort of movie. But
Yeah,
it's
that's
but right now I've been making like trying to keep like tight moving stories that, I feel like no one leaves a movie thinking that was too short, but we regularly think movies are too long. Like I
I think
often
so too.
my head of like docking movies for being like, well, that could have been half an hour shorter. So I'm trying
Right.
to look at
Right.
yes.
Try to follow that. Do you ever worry kind of soft pitching someone and wanting to have a meeting with them where, you're walking them through the deck, which is, I think, what you do too, right?
Yep.
And they wanted me to send the pilot and send the deck. And I thought, no.
It's hard. I mean, I will say that typically I send the deck. When they then respond to the deck, then they want to read the script. Then lately the meetings are happening The meaningful meetings are happening after that person has read all that material. Like I can tell you, I'm still very much in this process with A24, but the first process was send the script, then I got a meeting. Then after the meeting, they said to resend the script and give them an updated version. Then they had me come in after that and do the full pitch presentation where I was showing visuals, talking them through marketing, everything else. So it's been it feels like it's a long process. So
Hmm.
if you can get that meeting because they want to read that script first, sure. Sometimes there are going to be people that just want to see the pitch deck. I think there are no rules anymore as much as I would
Yeah.
like it to be one thing. What works for one person isn't going to work for the other. But for me, it's giving them enough material that they realize that it would be a mistake not to meet me, whatever that means.
Right. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Good. Thank you for that. That's a little bit of a sidebar question, but just as
Yeah,
a woman, thinking, like you said, just seems like the bro culture has a little bit of a different, a little easier door to open.
for sure. Yes. Yeah. There's no sort of one way for any of it. And I keep on reminding myself, like, what worked for me 5 years ago might not work now, or, and it's like I keep on trying to adapt. It used to
Yeah.
be that they didn't want to read the pilot for the thing they wanted to buy. They wanted to develop it with you. And now all of my friends that are doing really well are still having trouble selling a pilot unless they've written it. So I think as the
Mm.
industry just continues to have more financial problems, people are more
Flip-flop.
risk averse. Yeah.
Yeah. Sonia, if you can project what a legacy that you would like
Ooh.
to be.
Um, my two big goals, I want to be the creator and showrunner of an HBO prestige drama that I also have, a major role in, and that, I want to do like 3 seasons of that show like Succession or The Leftovers. That's like a serious drama that also has some levity. And then I want to keep on making movies. I eventually want to make a biopic about like a 1950s, a particular actress from back in the day that had mental illness. My father, who passed away this year, was paranoid schizophrenic, and I'm really interested in sort of writing about that mental health space. So I want to
Right.
continue to make movies that really matter, and I also want to be producing in the vein of like Margot Robbie or Reese Witherspoon, producing other people's projects as well as championing my own. I think what
Yes.
Emma Stone is doing right now, her company Fruit Tree, they, they're producers on a Real Pain, and they're producers on I Saw the TV Glow, and they're doing all of this incredible work like The Cursed. And I want to be able to do what they're doing, where you're acting, writing, and directing and producing in a slate of projects that all sort of are meaningfully feminist and provocative and dark and bold. So that's what I'm saying.
Love it.
Thank
Dark
you.
and bold. I love that too.
Yeah.
Feminist and provocative.
Mhm.
Sonia, anything else you want to offer or say or share about what it
Mm.
is to be a female filmmaker in this time, in this world, in this
Oh my
country,
gosh.
in this
I,
time, especially now with what we're facing or what we might be facing, or not to get super political, but get political if you need to. I
Yes,
mean,
I've been thinking about this a whole lot. Like my Cottagecore script is about a queer community where, everyone is pansexual and bi and trans. And to me, that wasn't that provocative. And now suddenly when you have political change happening where they're literally blocking the passports of trans people, and we have, all of this like Roe v. Wade stuff in the media, suddenly making body horror about whether my body as a queer woman and whether I have my own bodily autonomy, it certainly changes the context of everything I'm writing and makes things more dystopian. I feel like I'm in a Handmaid's Tale world, and it's more of a time than ever to push boundaries and use your voice. So I am hoping that that makes people more likely to champion these voices, because the more that we are being suppressed, the more vital it is that we have a platform.
excellent. And I love that you worked the word push into there.
Yes, I didn't even realize I was. I love that. You see, I'm pushing constantly.
Yeah, I know you didn't work it in there. I know it just came out naturally,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, that's fun.
so, Sonja, thank you so much. What a blessing for me to have you, for us to hear your insight, your inspiration, how hard you work is so commendable. It's like just to keep going, keep moving. I do sometimes let like the disappointments get me down. I do, and I know a lot of other people do because I talk with my circle of friends about things. And I think that now you can't spend that much time doing that. You just
You
got to get
can't.
right back on the horse.
Yes. Yes, I think that's my last big thing. Like we are in a moment right now of such problematic news cycle. Like every time we, look at Instagram or scroll and doom scroll, we see this awful political stuff that's happening, right? Times of war and genocide, and it's all absolutely horrific. But I know many artists right now, and we're all empaths and we're all super sensitive, that are so paralyzed by the fear and everything that they just want to roll up in a ball and be depressed and be paralyzed and have that moment. And they're allowed to have that moment. But I just think the only way that we can break out and change the world is by going and making bold art and not allowing ourselves to be stuck. So I think it's like pushing past these mental health things and finding a way to break through and make work. I really think it's the only way to change the world that we're in right now, you know?
Fantastic. Agreed. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for today.
Thank
This was
you.
a joy.
Thank you for joining us, Sonja O'Hara. And thank you everyone for tuning in to another edition of Push.